if you want to do it for a while, you have to make what you love. So don't compromise on that. If you love it, if you genuinely do it for you, you can do it indefinitely and you can grow and have fun. And I guarantee you, if you keep at it and keep improving yourself and improving how you present your project, people will start listening.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Headliner Mindset Podcast. Today's guest is an insanely talented bass music artist who is doing some super cool things with his project, from singing on his own tracks to making hilarious content and even painting his own cover art. He is a true artist through and through. Not to mention he's speaking out on the importance of mental health in the music industry, something you know I love to see. This is Swarm.
Hello. You did your homework. Wow.
I did. And you know, it's funny, man, because I'd heard of you before. I'd seen your name around, and then you just popped up on Instagram, and I ended up going to your page, and I was like, first thing I saw was that your brand was just really dialed in and really cool. And I was like, this guy gets branding. There's a cool look here. And then I started watching some of your videos, and I'm like, this is some of the funniest shit I have ever seen. It was so hilarious. And I just kept doing a deeper and deeper dive. Then I started listening to the music, and I'm like, holy shit, this is obviously one of my fellow metalhead brothers out here, because he's bringing in this cool metal sound. And then ultimately I came across an article that you had done with Forbes that was talking all about mental health. And I was like,
man,
this guy just knocked out. He just knocked every single fucking home run out of the park. So
you have really done your homework. Did not expect that, and I love it. That makes me very happy.
Yeah, man. I'm really excited to dive in with you. You know, I'm a huge fan, just over the past few days. And I also want to say, I always give major bonus points to the artists that I actually have no connection with, and I just totally send like a cold DM. You have no idea who I am, but you still instantly said yes to donate and dedicate your time and energy to jump on the podcast. And to me, that always is super special. So thank you for being down.
Super special for you to ask me. So we're good, man. Yeah, that's you touched on, let's see, you said metalhead. Yes. 100%. Mental health. Yep. Absolutely. That article in Forbes I never thought my first time being in Forbes would be about that. Something so unbelievably personal, but it was quite a milestone for me because if you would have asked me a couple years ago, like, hey, you think you're going to be in Forbes talking about your mental health struggles? I'd be like, fuck no. But you know, it's just
massive.
It's really cool. It was really, really interesting.
Well, I'd love to start off hearing a little bit about your background, because the impression that I get from you is like, you really are a true artist. That was one of the coolest things I saw on your Instagram, was you were literally doing an actual painting that became the cover art for one of your releases. And so I'd love to just hear a little bit about how you got into music, how you got into art. Like, where did this whole journey begin for you?
I've always been obsessed with music ever since I was a kid. My mom told me that my favorite toys growing up were plastic microphones and fake guitars and shit. So I've just always been obsessed with music. Even when I didn't do anything, I just eat, sleep, and drink music all the time. And I still do. Which is great because I work in it. So I get to immerse myself in everything I love all the time, which is amazing. Now, I started producing in 2017. So not too long ago. I'm still learning so much stuff. But one of my friends invited me to a festival here in Florida, Sunset Music Festival. And I'm like, sure, why not? Whatever. I didn't really listen to electronic that much.
Were you like a metalhead before that?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Were you playing in bands at all? Did you have before you started producing, were you playing music at all?
I did. When I was like 18, I was in a metal band that didn't end up going anywhere, but it really taught me a lot about songwriting and what works and what doesn't, and dealing with music politics and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I did definitely use that when I decided I want to come back to music. And even though that didn't work out, I actually ended up leaving that band for mental health reasons. I had just started my long descent into hell for a while, so to speak. It's not serious, but as the Forbes article said, that was like right before that whole eating disorder, anorexia giant episode that I had for a long time. So that ended up working out. And I just figured that, maybe music isn't for me. That's cool. But I ended up going to that festival and just kind of seeing how people were reacting to it. And I was really, really intrigued by it. And I'm just like, you know what? I've been wanting to do music again. Let's go. So I bought Ableton Live Lite, and it kind of clicked pretty quick. And I really felt that giant surge of inspiration and just like creative freedom that I was just like, oh, this is what I've been missing.
Yeah.
100% what I've been missing for the past, however many years it had been at that point since I'd been in the band. And so, it was full speed ahead from then. And I haven't stopped. Now the painting, that is a very new thing. Last year, my wife's like, hey, we should paint. And I'm like, I don't paint. I know you paint, but I don't. Yeah. She's like, oh, no, you'll be good at it. You're good at everything creative. I'm like, I don't. Okay, fine. And so we got a little canvas and I started doing it. My first painting was very crude. But I was just like, man, I really love this. And, the more outlets I have of creative freedom, the better I am, the more happy I am, the more. There's no better feeling than like finishing some project that I've been working on that just took all of the energy out of me and just put it in a physical form. And painting gave me a little bit of that hit, that little dopamine hit too, which was really nice. So and then my last single, Consumed, I decided to see if I could paint the cover. And I did. And it was really fun. And I have a single coming out next week that I painted another cover for.
It's pretty cool, man. It's pretty cool. I think you're picking that up pretty quickly as well, because the paintings.
I still have no idea what I'm doing, but it's fun.
Yeah, and that's what's most important, right? It's like, who's to say what's good or bad when it comes to art, right?
Right.
Are you enjoying it? Are you getting something out of you? Then it's a fucking win.
Yeah, just because millions of people aren't seeing the art you're creating doesn't mean it's not good. That comes with time and perseverance.
Yeah. So tell me about what was going on with you with this mental health battle, because it sounds like that was a big part of your journey and a big part of your story. I've seen you in some of your videos talk about it on stage and, share that with your audience. Obviously, that Forbes article was really big, but tell us a bit about that part of your journey.
Sure. There's a lot, just to preface this, I think that, I don't know, there's some scientists that think like some mental health issues can be like passed down through genes, specifically the one that I struggle with, which is eating disorders. I know there's a history of that in my family. I didn't really know that until after I had recovered, but just to get that out of the way, I don't know how much that affects what happened to me, or, if it was just a random occurrence. It could be either, but the story is still the same. Yeah, so I was in a relationship, a very serious relationship, right before all this happened, and I thought it was the one.
Yeah.
And
been there.
Yeah, of course. I finally found the one. I married her.
There we go.
Yeah, and that ended really awfully, like a very cruel kind of thing. And at that point, I had already been struggling with some depression, and I kind of took it personally, and I really internalized it, which is one of my biggest faults. Is I internalize a lot of things. Like I can take a beating for a long time and then I just snap. And I know that's a common thing a lot of people struggle with.
So just like pretending like nothing's wrong, just keeping it all inside and not really sharing anything.
Exactly. Yeah. And that was one of the first things that really kind of ignited the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak. Yeah. But the next few years, I became really obsessed with healthy eating, like way over the top healthy eating, because I'm a person of extremes. I always have been. I am now. I just find healthy extremes ish, And so I just I found a new love for exercising. I loved running, loved going to the gym, and all this stuff. And at the same time, like a few years later, I was in way better shape than I was before I started this, but I kind of had it felt like there was a wire missing in my head where there was no shut off. And some people started like expressing concern for me and saying, Brandon, you're not looking too good. What's up? And I'm just like, I'm fine. And slowly I started isolating myself over those first few years, and then just kept progressively getting worse for the next several. I spent all my time alone, or if I wasn't at work, I had a job that was very stressful at the time, that I was in charge of a store. So I had all that, the responsibility of being a store manager. And then I just I fully snapped about 5 years in, and I felt like that was the only thing I could control, like that was the eating and the weight. Those were the only things that I had control of, because I had a lot of other things happening around me that I just felt like I absolutely could not control at all.
Yeah.
And so it got so bad that eventually there's a lot of milestones and a bunch of things that happened, but my grandmother died right around the end of this whole episode, and that kind of shook me out of it a little bit. It was kind of like, man, what am I doing? It's funny because, just sidebar, it's funny because before, I still can't really remember. That whole period is just kind of a fuzz. It's not really anything I can distinctly, I can like feel the emotions I felt, but the actual events they just kind of don't exist in my brain, which I know there's like actual medical reasons for that, but and kind of before that too. I don't remember a lot before it happened. But anyways, so I don't know, something also snapped inside of me, but it was just like, man, I'm kind of wasting my life here. And seeing somebody in the family die like that was just like, maybe it's time for a change. Because at this point, it'd been 9 or 10 years in this. And
did it start getting you to think about your mortality in a sense of like, hey, life is short
somewhat,
and this thing is going to end at some point? So
yeah, somewhat. And it wasn't. It was definitely something like that. I couldn't tell you exactly what it was. It was more of, I just kind of got like a very, very sharp wake up call that whatever it was just kind of shook whatever it was loose in my brain. It's just like, man, what am I doing?
Yeah.
But I never really cared about mortality or anything, and it's not something that bothers me. And honestly, it's still not, because, I don't know what it is about it, but that particular thing doesn't scare me. Yeah. But this particular instance of somebody dying definitely shook me up. So I went into I didn't go into a physical recovery place because I'm too stubborn, but I started eating again. And once I started eating again, the floodgates opened, and I was just like, God, I love food. Shit.
Yeah.
And
I miss these fucking donuts.
Yeah, pretty much.
That would be me. I would just go straight for the donuts.
Well, I mean, I love donuts. Yeah. I went straight for the Cinnamon Toast Crunch and the pizza.
Go. Yeah.
But, what I realized after that was, I think that whole thing happened because I had a lot of things brewing underneath the surface before this all happened. And once it was over and my brain was given nutrients again, I started realizing that these things are still there. They're not going away. Yeah. And a lot of other things like started rearing up, and I'm like, damn. So like, I think it was definitely me kind of suppressing that a little bit and trying to just get it to go away, because when I was at my really low weight, like my brain was just quiet all the time. And that's kind of what really kept me going. Was now I know I have severe ADD.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that at the time because I never went to any doctors or anything. So
did you start working with any professionals, like a therapist or anything at that point? Yeah.
Yep. And that was my next point. It was the real thing that really brought it home is my best friend's dad was like, Brandon, he's always been a really cool guy, always been there. He's like, Brandon, we ever thought about seeing a therapist? I'm like, no. But then I'm like, I'm like, I'll think about it.
Yeah. What was your resistance to that?
Independence. just feeling like I could do it on my own, being
Yeah.
stubborn because I'm really fucking stubborn.
Yeah.
But I said, yeah, all right, you know what? Let's do it. Because like I was really struggling. I kept relapsing and coming back. Basically, I realized, okay, I don't think I can do this on my own because it's like there was just a war going on at all times in my head.
For sure.
And I realized that I've not equipped to deal with this at all. And I think that was the turning point right there of the whole thing.
Yep.
And so I went and saw him, and it was really awkward at first because I had never done anything like that. But he's an amazing dude, and I still see him to this day.
Oh, hell yeah.
And he's the amount of change that has happened since I started seeing him is the amount of things I've learned about myself and about how I react to things and
Yeah.
what keeps me going and what keeps me happy and what, you know, those factors that make everything worth it, and focusing on that kind of stuff was among 1,000 other things. So that's why I've told everybody all the time, I'm like, listen, it seems, if it seems scary or weird or, weak, if you do this, like, just don't listen to it. Because the reason I'm literally here right now, or if I'm saying this on stage, talk to somebody.
Yep.
Because you may think you're equipped to handle this yourself, whatever it is you're going through, but I promise you're not as equipped to think you are to do it alone.
Yeah, man. 1,000%. Last year was the first year I had experienced true depression. I'd had funks before. I'd have my bad days. I'd have my
Sure.
bad weeks. But this was a good solid 2 months where I was in the pit of shit. And It was, I've been studying personal development for 15 years. I've read all the books. I've listened to all the podcasts. I've done coaching. I am a fucking coach. So my identity was so tied up in, I'm the one that helps other people. I can do, if anybody can do this on my own, it's me.
It's also stubbornness.
It's totally. Like, nobody is immune to the quicksand of life that sometimes just sucks you into it. And so it was that same moment of it was the moment that I admitted, I'm not okay and I need some help here.
Yeah,
right.
absolutely.
And it was the minute I surrendered.
Yep.
Everything started to change. I started seeing a therapist as well. I just picked back up with her again, which I'm really excited about because, like, I love the show. I will talk about my feelings all fucking day. Like, I love it. I love it. I'm such a big advocate for it. I think everyone should have a coach, which is really helping you work towards your goals and your future and your big ambitions, but also a therapist that's going to kind of dig into the past a bit and, maybe heal some of those childhood wounds and traumas. Like, in a perfect world, we'd all have a fucking team around us.
100%.
What do you think are some good qualities to look for in a therapist? What makes somebody really good at that job?
That's a good question. That's a surprisingly really, really deep question. And I'll tell you this, I might not be equipped to answer that because I got very, very lucky or blessed or however you want to say it, because I trusted the person who recommended me to see a therapist, and it was one of his friends. And so right off the bat, I've never seen anybody else. I've seen a psychologist for the medical side, but not another therapist. But I could tell you what I felt with him, which was I walked in there and this guy's presence itself was just calming. And he was so understanding. He genuinely, you could tell, like, whenever I talked, he was genuinely listening, and you could tell that he cared. And I can imagine that especially if you have a bad experience with another therapist or, anything like that, or like if you happen to get somebody who's just, spoils the, bad apple spoils the whole bunch or whatever the saying is. Yeah. I could definitely see why you'd be real hesitant to try again if that's your only experience with a therapist. Because I know there are, unfortunately, I've heard from a lot of people that they did try to see therapists and they couldn't find one that, like, they felt like they clicked with. Yeah. And I know that is a big problem. And I wish I could offer some insight on that, but I got extremely lucky with on the first time, I instantly, like, after about 10 minutes of talking, I'm like, oh man, here we go.
Yeah.
Floodgates are coming.
Yeah. But I think you nailed it. It's somebody that will make you feel comfortable and feel safe. And creating an environment where you can really let your guard down and be willing to go deep. And
Right.
not everybody's going to be a right fit. Like I definitely, there's certain people that are going to get along with me and my coaching style, and there's certain people that aren't, and that's fine. Same thing with, with especially with therapists, because you're going a little bit deeper and into the deep end.
Right.
But I think the important part is to not settle and keep searching until you find the right person. And it's cool that you lucked out, you hit one on your first try. But for other people, it might not be your first try. But
Absolutely.
Yeah, don't give up. Keep searching for the right one.
What I can say is it's worth it to keep searching, for sure.
Yeah, dude, it's like a secret weapon in your back pocket. We all need that shit.
Yeah. And it's and again, I just can't reiterate enough that like the idea of it, like the very idea, entertaining the idea at first pissed me off. It's like, no, I can do this.
Yeah.
And also like, it was also like, I don't want to talk to somebody else about this really personal shit, because I didn't talk to anybody about that shit at all. Like I haven't spoken any of those words out of my mouth in God knows how long at that point.
Yeah. And when we don't, we're carrying baggage with us. Like it's energy, It's mental energy, it's emotional energy, but it's real energy, and it's like a weight, and you might not be conscious of it, but anything that you're holding on to that you haven't expressed and really looked at, not only just looked at, because you might be looking at it all the time, but it's the moment that you open your mouth and you say the words, and the energy transmutes from being in your mind and being in your heart to being out of your mouth and out into the world. It literally makes you lighter. Like that alone is healing. Just being what it is, it's being witnessed by somebody else. It's being witnessed by somebody else and still being held with love, even at your deepest, darkest places, And so,
absolutely.
I mean, I have a call. I run a little men's group on the side, outside of my artist coaching. I'm really into like the sort of men's work space as well. And so I run groups every now and then. And literally tonight I have a call with my guys, and this is the week. It's like a 9-week thing that we do. And we've been building rapport with each other for the last almost 6-7 weeks. Tonight is the night where we get to like really take off the mask and get real and get vulnerable. And like the whole theme of our conversation is basically go say something that you've never fucking said before in front of a group of 6 other guys. And the thing is, we all love each other. We've spent 2 months getting to know each other, and it's like a therapy session in itself.
Sure.
But it's just the power of letting go of whatever you've been holding on to and having the courage to say it out loud. Because the minute you fucking say it, it doesn't hold power over you anymore, or it doesn't hold as much power over you anymore. So I love to see that you're in the work, bro. That's awesome.
That's a really true statement too, it may hold no power over you after you say it, or it may still hold some, but it won't be as much. And that is one thing that I really also tell people too, if they ask, or sometimes I volunteer it. Again, like when I say things from stage before my last song, like I don't plan it. I just wing it, so
yeah.
I couldn't tell you exactly. I just know I've said this before, because I just don't remember that. Usually anytime I play, it's all a blur, but it doesn't mean that, seeing somebody or, talking to somebody about what's going on does not mean that it's going to vanish magically.
Yeah.
Sometimes it might, just talking about it, different issues, whatever. It could, but also, for me, it didn't. It did not just go away, but 1, I'm still alive now. 2, I'm happy now. And even if that stuff is still in the back of my mind, I know what to do about it now,
Yeah.
And that's huge, is having the tools to, that you can use against these things.
Totally.
And so and therefore, going back to what you said about they have less power, is you know how to shoot them down, or know what to do to attempt to shoot it down before you get too low, kind of thing.
For sure. It's like anything that's hiding in your closet that hasn't been looked at, that hasn't been cleared out, that hasn't at least started to be spoken about, is going to hold power over you. And here's a great example of it. I have a friend who tested positive for herpes, and he had an incredible amount of shame about it, even though it's, I don't know, it's 1 in 4 people or something have herpes. It's like a fucking
Something
common thing.
ridiculously common, yeah.
But he has so much shame about it that it's like he basically has closed himself off from dating and from loving and from having fun. And it's like really affected him, really negatively.
Mm-hmm.
And I have another friend who has herpes as well. And she suffered in the shame and all the stuff that came up with that until she finally decided to say, you know what, I'm not going to let this fucking control me.
Yep.
And she started talking about it openly. She started talking about it publicly. She now runs she's making like $500,000 a year now as a coach, entirely based off of helping people get over their shame of having herpes. That's like what she built her whole fucking business around. So it's like this idea of alchemy where you have this thing. The idea of alchemy is taking the useless metal and turning it into gold, right? Right. And it's like the metaphor is like, well, what are those parts of yourself that you hate the most, that you have shame about, that you have guilt around? And the process of transmutation, the process of alchemy, alchemical process is like, can you take those and actually own it and turn that shit into gold? And she's just such a fucking amazing, amazing example of that. She's now gone on to help thousands of people, specifically thousands of women that have taken themselves out of the game, that have struggled, that have all of these self-confidence issues because of this like very, silly, stupid little disease that our society has labeled as a disease that makes people feel like shit about themselves. And she's turned that into like one of her greatest legacy offerings in the world. Anyone that is feeling called to that, go check her out. Her name is Beck Antonucci, one of my best fucking friends. She is like such a powerhouse, badass coach. But it's like, yo, either this shit's going to control you and steal your power from you, or you can have the courage to like do the work and fucking own it and get to the other side. And oftentimes that process actually makes you even stronger, right?
Agree. Oh, yeah. And to add to that too is I feel like that journey to get back into being a normal functioning human after being a shell of a human for so long. And then the journey to become more than just a functioning human.
Yeah.
Gave me, for the first time in my life, confidence of some sort. And I would not be here. I wouldn't be doing this if I did not go through all that and kind of acquire that confidence through rebuilding myself block by block, basically. I guess I'm not a Lego, but vein by vein or whatever. But in that regard, I feel I don't look back at that time in my life and say, what the fuck was I thinking?
Yeah.
I don't see it that way at all. It's like, that was something I went through. Yeah. That's how I chose to deal with it. And I appreciate now that I'm on the other side, I appreciate what it taught me. Yeah. And it taught me that I'm a lot stronger than I think I am. And it taught me that I don't give myself enough credit for, you name it, staying alive or just honestly strength. I don't give myself enough credit for how strong, so much stronger than we think we are. Yeah. And I had to go through that to learn that. Yeah. And that's why I'm here. Now I have the confidence to inject all of these experiences into the songs I make and the lyrics I write. And I don't know if I definitely wouldn't be doing that if I had just had a normal, 20s or whatever it was.
Yeah, it fucking sucks balls while it's happening. It's painful and it's horrible.
Yep.
But for anyone that's out there that might be going through what I would call a dark night of the soul, or just through depression or through an eating disorder or through, whatever shame spiral you're in, I know it's hard to see it while you're in it. But if there can even be one little kernel of truth to this statement, that everything happens for a reason, and that this is part of your soul's curriculum, that you are actually supposed to be going through this to learn the lessons, to have your character forged in the fire of fucking pain and challenge, and just trust that you will come out on the other side of it a better, stronger person. And, it's so rad to see what you've created for yourself since then. Your project is so fucking rad. As I was saying before, I'm just such a massive fan. I'd love to talk about, your branding, because like I'm a big branding guy. I really love a good brand. I help people work on their brands as well, and I'm super impressed with what you've created for yourself. So I'm curious about how you approached creating this project. Like, did you already have the idea and the concept? Like, it seems like you really understand branding, and so I'm curious about, did you kind of figure it out along the way, or like how did you approach this? Because it seems to me like you just got it figured out.
Well, thank you. I have nothing figured out. That's my answer. No, I over the years, I've learned that my gut is just not wrong. Usually it doesn't matter what other people tell me. You shouldn't do that, blah, blah. My gut's just, I don't think I can name a single time where if I felt, I just felt in my chest like this is the right thing to do, or this is definitely not the right thing to do. I can't think of a time where I've been wrong about that, so I always just go with that. But I did not plan it necessarily from the start. The logos, wanted them to go hand in hand. I definitely, that was planned. But basically from the start, what I wanted to do is I wanted to take all of my influences, all of the music I listened to, and kind of have them be reborn in a different format. So like, I don't usually listen to electronic music outside of making it. Like I do occasionally. There's some people that I really like that just are up my alley. But, I'm a definitely metal, industrial.
Yeah. Who are some of your influences from that world? Let's talk metal shit real quick.
Sure. Well, my favorite band is not metal. It's more industrial rock, Rammstein.
Oh, hell
That's
yeah.
my favorite band.
Hell yeah.
And besides that, like there's some really cool symphonic metal-ish, it's like rockish metal that's it's called Within Temptation. It's another one of my favorites.
Yep.
Ridiculously good. Just love them.
Yeah. And you have a very big like kind of cinematic orchestral undertone to your music.
Oh yeah,
which
well that's always the stuff I love.
Yeah,
it's always
I love
been
that.
like I've
So
always
cool.
listened. Even before I made music, I'd listen to soundtracks, and yeah, that's a big part of it for sure. Now I didn't start out making that right off the bat because I had no idea how to fucking do that, and I had to learn along the way. Like I had to get the very basics down first, and it was always in the horizon. It was always a goal to be able to compose stuff. Yeah. But one step at a time. So when I finally started getting into that, I was just like, holy shit, here we go. And I'm still learning. It is so much bigger than I ever expected it to be. Obviously, I knew it was like the scope of, cinematic and composing and all that kind of stuff. Because I don't have any background in that. I could play guitar. I played guitar back in the day. I still do. But yeah, the scope of composing for my music is very large, but I'm still learning a lot. But that was always the end goal. The end goal keeps evolving, but it kind of just stays on these specific points, which is authenticity, doing what I love, because the only way that I can keep doing this long term is if I am absolutely in love with what I make. And that's also why, my music does take longer than a lot of electronic music artists to make. It's because, my last single, Consumed, like that was my record because it was so big, but like it was like 600 tracks within the song. It was just stupid. And now I promised myself I'd never do that again because that was a nightmare, but I probably will.
Yeah, you will. Yeah, for sure.
I have a single coming out next week that I did stick to that promise, but I really pushed myself in a lot of different directions to kind of achieve what I want.
In my intro for you, I said that you are, really a true artist through and through. And I think you just confirmed that so well by talking about how you always trust your gut and stay authentic. Like one of the pillars of your brand is authenticity. I'm going to do what I want to do, and I'm going to trust myself.
Yep. And
I think that's so, so huge. And it's so important for artists to hear that, because it's very easy to get caught up in what you think you should be doing and what everybody else
100%.
is doing, and looking at what record labels they're signing and what is everybody doing for their branding and all of that. And it can become this very intellectualized mental construct as opposed to creating from your fucking heart and soul, man. You got to be tapped into that shit. And so it's cool to see that, like, you really are, man. And you're walking the talk, bro. I love that.
That really means a lot. And that brings me to the next point of, I knew I wanted to release all the stuff myself. Like there's been, but at the same time, I have two rules: release everything yourself, do everything independently, but don't turn down something that comes along and is put in front of you just because you want to be ferociously independent. Those are my two rules when it comes to releasing, because then you could really fuck yourself. And
you are notoriously stubborn, so we got to watch out for that.
Exactly. And so that was kind of my balance there is, now there have been a few times that, like, when I do a remix for a bigger artist, obviously it's going to go on the label that released their stuff. I have no problem with that anyway. That's totally fine. That's great. I'm excited about that because, I mean, there's no other way it would work. And two, like, I've done a few one-offs here and there, with one with Cannonball and two with Cannonball and two with Fixed Records. Fixed is the coolest company ever. Absolutely love them. And they understand where I come from too, where there's like, because, you know, they've asked me a few times since, and I'm like, honestly, I really want to do this myself. I love y'all. I'll support the shit out of y'all. You know, please, if you have another opportunity, please come to me, because maybe the time will be right then. And so,
what made you say yes to them at that time in those moments?
Well, the first one was because that was a label. Cannonballin' was a label that I had always really enjoyed their artists. And because I felt, basically what happened is when they came to me and they said, hey, we want you to do this, what do you think? I'm like, my first reaction was excitement, because I'm like, oh, I've listened to these artists forever. And that's something like, am I just going to say no just because I want to do everything independent if it gives me that joy? Because like, it was not a literal goal of mine, but it was a goal because it made my heart like jump, you know? Yeah. So I said yes. And I have no regrets on it. And then the Fixed is because I had a long talk with the founder, and they asked me to do a remix for Cell Dweller, and that's his label. And I just really like the people there. And so obviously I did the remix, and that was the one. And then they asked me to do a single like about a year later. I'm like, yeah, y'all were awesome to work with. Love y'all. Let's do it. You know, we'll do this. So I did it. And then since then I haven't done it, but I'm down to do it in the future if it feels right, for sure. Yeah.
Why do you normally not work with labels and want to do things on your own?
Honestly, that is the artist in me. And that is, I want to be able to say that I created this inside and out, that when you're listening to this, you're listening to something that I spent, you know, who knows how long I spent on it, that everything from the lyrics, the cover art that I painted, the promotional stuff I made, all of it, I made myself. I just love to be able to say that, because then I have the highest form of authenticity I possibly can. It's literally everything you see and hear comes directly from my head.
Yeah.
And that's special to me. And that's why I like doing independently. Like, there was no big, you know, and that's why I'm really proud of, you know, by this point I've released a lot of music. And besides, you know, 5 or 6 that are remixes or like a single here and there on a label, like, that was me. Like, there was no budget. Yeah. There was just me getting creative. And, you know, there was no label pushing their, you know, using their fucking blunt force to get me anywhere. There was no people paying for placement on playlists on Spotify. That was just me making music and releasing it to you to hear. And that means more to me than getting, you know, possibly an extra play boost or getting in front of a couple of different eyes for, you know, giving a label my music.
It sounds like you get not only a lot of pride, but also a lot of enjoyment from that whole process as well. Mm-hmm. Right. Which I think is so cool. You know, a lot of people are just like, I just want to make music. And I like don't understand anything else. I don't want to do anything else. And so to me, it's always cool when I meet artists that are like, no, I like putting out records. It's fun to do the business side of it too, because it really can be like, especially when you start to understand it. I think that's what stumps a lot of people is it's like, well, I don't know how any of this shit works. I don't understand how any of it works. So it's a lot easier to give it over to a label or somebody else to do it for them. But it's like, it's not that hard to learn, right? Like you figured it out.
Oh yeah. No, it definitely evolves a lot. There's so many, the musical landscape of the distribution and the back end of everything it has changed so drastically since I started. But, I do find that fun. And now that I have a really great team behind me that understands my desire to do things myself or independently, the numbers thing, I try not to look at. I try not to look at numbers and all that stuff because that'll just stress me out and take me out of the creative zone.
Yeah.
So I have, Anthony do that.
So I don't want to stress you out, but I did notice that you have like 54,000 YouTube subscribers, which is a pretty big YouTube channel. And like a lot of artists don't even do anything on YouTube. A lot of artists are so focused on Instagram, and now obviously like TikTok is really where the focus is at. But like you've built a pretty fucking solid YouTube channel for yourself.
I don't know how.
I was going to ask you, like, how did you do that? Like,
I'll tell you what really happened was every release, every song, I always have a very, very cool, either like it's the biggest, any money I make from streaming or, YouTube money or whatever, it's not a lot, but it goes right back into the pot for the next one. Yeah. And so every one of these lyric videos and visualizers and all these things that I make for the songs are really, really cool. Like I can objectively say they're cool. Like
they're sick, dude.
Like, and so that is where I think a lot of it comes from. Cause most people just put, a repeating graphic that goes around the circle for 4 minutes, kind of thing. But I want to have the whole thing,
Yeah, yours have like fucking monsters and shit coming out and glowing and shooting each other. And I was like,
yeah,
what?
No,
I'm not seeing any artists doing this. It's fucking rad.
I love that stuff. Like I just want to be the person that goes so deep, so much deeper into the everything involving what I make. I just want to be completely just immersed in it, and I want everybody else to be immersed in it too. It's really hard to get people to pay attention to any of that other stuff. Most people will see your, oh, look, new song out now. Cool. I'll listen to it in, 3 months. And then, then they'll go listen to, oh, this is cool. Then maybe down the road, who knows? Maybe if you're the rare person, then they'll go to YouTube and be like, I wonder if there's a cool video. Because most people don't, though. That's the thing, is there's so few people that put effort into things other than, sitting in their room, recording themselves listening to a new song and jumping around or whatever. Like, yeah. That's what most people think promotion is. And so it's like, I want to be the full package. I want to be the artist that I love listening to, which is, all my favorite bands have there's not ever just a single. There's always a great video. There's always just big, dope rollout that just so much more than just the song. The song is the focus, obviously, but then there's this whole other world around it. And that's what I want to do.
I like what you said about putting in effort, because that was what I really noticed as I was looking at some of your content. And I think what kind of grabbed me in the first place was I started seeing some of the funny stuff that you were putting out, which I really got to commend you. Like, it's really cool to see that you're able to balance having this very dark, edgy, metal, kind of gothic, industrial, badass brand, but then you also crush it on the funny side too. It's like, I think it's hard to do both of those really well, but this is why you've been able to do it. From my perspective, you put in effort, because the funny stuff that you're making, it's just elevated. It seems like it's more thought out. They're like actual, like really funny skits, and you have backgrounds, and you would have costumes. They're like little mini skits and little mini movies, and you're putting in more effort than most people are that are trying to be funny. Because I see so many people that are like they're trying to do it on TikTok and just capitalize on trends and shit, but they're not really being thoughtful. And really it's that putting in that extra level of effort. And I think that's why you're not only knocking it out of the park, but it still aligns with your brand, because all of your brand is reflective of just a lot of high intention and effort.
Yeah. And well, thank you again. So those funny videos and skits and shit came about because a couple years ago, I started seeing a lot of like, there was this big explosion for some reason of like a lot of like darker artists that came about in like 2019 or like late 2018. And I'm not sure why. Maybe everybody's just pissed off with the world or something. I don't know. But there was this big resurgence, and all of them basically, like, I looked at them, I'm like, man, this is what I don't want to be. Like, I don't want to be this very, like, constantly, you know, look how evil I am.
Yeah.
Look at me. I'm so evil. Like, you know, the world will burn kind of shit. It's like watching a cheesy 80s horror movie.
Yeah.
And like, I just want to be authentic. And so I was like, dude, I am a goofy person. Not everything is depressing about me. I have my moments. I love comedies. I love, you know, just goofy shit. And why not just show that side of myself too? Like, why do I only pick and choose these certain things? And that was the point where I was just like, okay, this brand is just me. I'm just going to be this.
Yeah.
I have to do no effort in building an online persona because it's just my personality. I dress like I dress in pictures, you know, minus my stage shirt, which I'm not going to walk around wearing my stage shirt. But even then, like the collar and everything, I wear that all the time when I go out or whatever. I always wear black. I literally barely own anything else but black. Like, you know, I don't, there's no fronting with me whatsoever. I talk about when I'm struggling.
Just back to that authenticity.
Yeah, no, that's it. So that was the day when it was like, boom, everything. I'm just going to be myself. And that's it.
Yeah.
And the rest is history. That's literally it. And so then I was able to, in my opinion, I could distinguish my brand, which is just me, from these other, you know, very dark, mysterious artists. Because, you know, I'm not trying to hide my face.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to say that I was birthed on a moon 4 centuries ago, you know, like.
That could be a good skit, though.
I'm sure I've done something like it before. I've done a lot of things. But yeah, I do have a closet of all the outfits and costumes and shit.
I love it, bro. I love it, man.
Yeah, thank you.
What advice do you have for up-and-coming artists? What would be a few words of wisdom and tips, maybe things that you wish you had known when you were younger, just kind of getting into the game?
The industry sucks. Don't pay attention to it. That's one. And it sounds overly simple, but it's just with any industry, like, you're going to get disillusioned by people. You're going to get fucked over by people. It's just the nature of anything that involves money, and especially money and like prestige, like being a DJ is, you know, like it's one of those things where there's a lot of people that talk really big. Keep your inner circle very close, and just keep your head down. Don't get involved. Like, there's just no good comes from being involved in all of the drama that happens all the time. That's why, like, about 2 years ago, I'm like, you know what? When I play a festival, I'm going on the day I play, might hang around before I play, might hang around a little bit after I play. I'll meet people that want to meet me. I'll do meetups, and then I'm out. Because any more than that degrades my mental health. My mental health goes from great to just, and I just don't like being around a shitload of, you know, there's plenty of nice people too. There really is. Tons of nice people. There's just so many sharks in the water that, like, I don't feel like even having to discern who these sharks are. So I just eliminate the whole thing from it. And, you know, all the politics and stuff, I just don't care. So just don't get involved in that shit, and you're going to be so much happier. That's my first thing. 2, this is my personal motto, and I can't say if it'll work for you, but it works for me, but I think it'll work for you, is if you love what you're doing, it's not hard to keep doing it indefinitely. If there's a new style emerging, you want to get in on that, and you think that that's what you identify with, cool, do it. You know, like I just so happened to come in when the mid-tempo thing was emerging, and that was never the goal to do, but I felt like I had a good handle on it. And that was very similar to the industrial stuff that I grew up listening to.
Yeah.
And so that felt like a natural fit for me. And that was never the end goal, but that was my first stepping stone. And I think that has a lot to do with the reason I'm still here is because I take everything, I make everything I love, and I put it all into one pot, and I just add my flavor to it. And that's why I don't get bored with what I do, is because I'm always finding new things to add into the mix while keeping it sounding like me, because I'll get bored. I have a very low attention span, even for my own music. So when I do make a song that keeps my attention, which is, any song I've ever released, because that means this kept my attention. I hope you like it. And I know most of the world doesn't have a high attention span either anymore.
Yeah. What do you do when you get bored or uninspired, hit creative blocks? Like, how do you get re-inspired and keep that juice alive?
I look at, thanks to my therapist, he helped me with this. So I look at, one, I know the things that make me happy. Good relationship with my wife. Exercise. I love running. Am I doing those things? Is everything good with Lauren? Am I running? Am I doing something outside of music? Because when music is your job, you have to have a hobby outside of that. It may have used to be a hobby, but now it's a job. So it's like, how do you keep it feeling like a hobby? So now, if either one of those things, like have I stopped running because I'm stressed, or have I stopped running because I'm working too hard on this project? Usually, if I have those three things, then I'm not going to be creative block. And that was after a long time of banging my head against the wall. Like, why am I creatively blocked? It's like, step back, look at these things, make something right with Lauren. If we're having, we're quarreling, struggling or whatever, because it happens.
Yeah.
Keep consistently exercising. That's my biggest one. It sounds so dumb. It sounds so adult of me to say, but if I haven't gone to the gym or ran in several days, I'm going to start getting really stagnant creatively, and I'm going to feel like shit.
Yeah.
And like that was a game changer for me.
Yep. And I can vouch for that. There's a reason I'm in the gym every morning. It's not to look buff and get chicks. It's because it's for my fucking mental health, so I can stay sharp and show up every day.
So true.
It's everything.
It's unbelievably true. And not only that, it keeps me happy, period. Like, I just feel relaxed and good after I go for a run or after I go to the gym.
Yeah.
And
get those endorphins going.
A lot of this time when I'm running, I'm writing lyrics or something, or listening to my mix to see how I can make it better before it's done mastering it. But to go back to the tips for the people, so it's have a system that you can gauge your happiness on if you're stuck. But going back to the thing that I don't think I even finished, which was the love what you make, and you can go indefinitely from it. Be yourself. That was the last thing I had to add to that, because you can absolutely, like, if you're inspired by somebody and you think you have your own spin on it, like, cool, man. Like, good artists borrow, great artists steal. It has some truth to it. It really does. Like, as long as you're making it your own, and if it inspires you, find a way to spin it, Don't steal a song. That's fucking dumb, obviously. But if you have an idea that's for something that you're like, wait, but I could do that, but like this, and you could build something around it, and it's just, that becomes its own thing, and it becomes totally different from the original idea. And that's basically what I do. For example, my vocal style, besides this new single has me singing. So
like singing.
Yeah, singing. In addition to the regular kind. Yeah. Because that's always been a goal of mine too, to be able to do that.
So you don't consider what you do singing?
Not really. No. It's more like talking aggressively. Pretty much.
Love it.
Anyways, what was I saying? Oh yeah, like Rammstein. Very similar spoken word, aggressively spoken word kind of vocals. But when it's in electronic music, it has lost all relation to an existing band that is in a completely night and day different like spectrum of music.
Yeah.
But that was my inspiration for that. And so I
Yeah.
took it and made it my own.
Yeah.
So that's definitely what I would say there is find opportunities to make your identity with things that you love and find your own spin on it. But above all, you have to be doing this for a while. If you want to do it for a while, you have to make what you love. So don't compromise on that. If people are telling you, oh, it's not dancey enough or whatever, like, who cares? If you love it, if you genuinely do it for you, you can do it indefinitely and you can grow and have fun. And I guarantee you, if you keep at it and keep improving yourself and improving how you present your project, people will start listening, because that's exactly what happened with me.
Man, I think that might be some of the best words of wisdom that I've had on this podcast so far. And I am so excited to share this with my audience. And for anyone that hasn't yet been turned on to Swarm, I highly encourage you, go listen to the tunes, go check out the YouTube, check out the Instagram. Like, he's just killing it. I'm obviously a huge fan, but just loving what you're doing, man. And
Thank
really,
you.
really appreciate you taking the time to come on and
Hell yeah.
share your energy with us. And if you ever make your way out to Austin, Texas, I'd love
dude,
to.
you're in Austin?
I'm in Austin.
Oh,
so
sick. Yeah, dude, I was there a couple months back and my best friend lives there. So I'll
Hell
definitely
yeah.
be around.
Hit me up when you come through, man.
Hell yeah.
It'd be great to connect. But thank you so much for taking the time today.
Absolutely, man. Thank you for having me.